Hello and welcome to Camp Xtras. One of my all-time favorite racing games is Wave Race 64. It's an addictive and well-put-together racing title. For a long time, I had thought it was the first in the franchise, but the Game Boy is originally where it started. So let's take a look back at this handheld game and see how it holds up. I'm going to break it down in a review as well as give you some history. All footage was emulated, but I did play it on my Game Boy. I just have no way to capture it at this time. But let's go ahead and hop into this one. In 1989, Nintendo introduced the Game Boy, and it quickly became one of the most successful consoles ever. It was a must-have for any gamer in the era. At that time, Pax Softnica was working with Nintendo EAD to develop titles exclusively for their consoles. They had worked on Volleyball and the first Earthbound game. In 1990, they began developing simple Game Boy games including Balloon Kid and Radar Mission, both of which would have Nintendo legend Gunpei Yokoi working in some capacity on it. So their intermingling with important people at the company was there and would continue. After that, their next game would be Wave Race, a jet ski game for the handheld. Working on this game would be Shigeru Miyamoto as producer, making his first foray into Game Boy games. It was at a time when he was producing a lot of games, which that year he was also working on Super Mario Kart, meaning that he would work on 2 racing games in 1992. However, Wave Race would adopt a top-down style. Wave Race would release in July 1992 only in North America. This game would never touch Japan and would not hit Europe till 1997, making this an odd Nintendo title that never left America for a very long time and then never went to Japan. Personally, I played this one maybe 7 or 8 years ago when I bought it for cheap. I didn't know that it existed at the time, and I remember thinking it was okay, but my experience with it has long left my mind. But I wanted to play it again recently. So with a fresh mindset, I went into this one and let me break down how I felt about it, starting with the gameplay. There's something refreshing about the simplicity of a Game Boy game. 2 buttons, start, select, and the D-pad. You know the game will be simple to understand, and that's what you get with Wave Race. This is a top-down racing game and feels close to something like Micro Machines if you've ever played that. You move around in a radial pattern, and also you accelerate with B, going in whatever direction you're pointed. Physics play a heavy part in this though, since you are in water. Turns are extremely heavy. You can't brake, so it's about managing your speed so you don't blaze past turns you need to make. I think the handling in this game is achieved well, and I think when you go from the low speeds to the higher speeds, whenever you go up in difficulty, it's all about managing the heaviness of your vehicle, and you can feel that weightiness matter more. It manages to feel really good, and it makes you learn how to manage the weightiness, and in turn, I think learning that makes this game an addictive one on the handheld. There are 2 game modes here, Slalom and Circuit. Circuit is a simple racing mode where you have to follow a laid out path and race against 3 others. This can be done with 3 real people rather than computers. This game does support 4-player system link, which unfortunately I didn't get to try, but I do think that's cool. The Circuit game mode is extremely hard. Your opponents are great at what they do, and this game strives for perfection. The way to handle turns is to let go of the gas and then glide around them, but that's easier said than done. When this game gets faster, it's brutal, yet it is entertaining. There are only 8 tracks here though, so you will be playing the same routes over and over. I like this as far as learning it goes, but I do wish there was a bit more. Also, it is simplistic. These courses, as they go up in difficulty, only usually give you more turns, and one track has you making a loop in the water. But otherwise, this game is not flashy and only gives you basic races. For me though, I thought the slalom mode was much better. Here you get a massive course with multiple checkpoints. The idea is to hit more of these checkpoints than everyone else. This means that you must establish a good path and you practice these over and over. And that feeling of carving great paths to follow is excellent. This was a fun, almost puzzle-like mode that allowed me to get everything down as quickly as I could. Turning is just as crucial as racing once you get to those higher speeds, and I kept coming back to this one. Yet it is simple, and once again there are only 8 courses, so you will revisit the same ones over and over, and the earlier levels are very simple. I do wish we saw more courses here, but it is the Game Boy. There's also a great turbo system in this game where you gradually gain turbo as you race. Knowing when to use this to get ahead is crucial to winning games. Also, knowing where animals are helps a lot. It's weird though, you run over animals in the water to gain speed boosts, which isn't very true to real life and it's a bit mean. That's about it for this game. There's not much more here. It's a simple racing game for the Game Boy, and it's easy to pick up and play. I think on those merits, that means the gameplay works for the system it's on. The audio in this game is extremely simple. There's music, but it's only in the menus and the interstitial scenes. You get a menu jingle and a wind jingle, just small little tunes. They're cute, but nothing memorable. Otherwise, the main sound of this game is your jet ski engine. This game has this constant drone of an engine running. It's not annoying, but I wouldn't say it's pleasant. The audio here is just very take it or leave it. It's not bad, but I do wish we actually got some music in the races. The visuals are pretty solid for the Game Boy though. The monochrome stands out and everything visibly works well. There's not a lot on screen since it is a top-down view of the water, so it doesn't have to do a lot, but the graphics are not messy and it all makes sense. I think it could have benefited from pulling out the camera just a little bit more, but otherwise it works. A nice touch though is that on the Game Boy Color, they did add some color into this game. It gets a lovely blue on everything to make the water stand out more. Overall, I'd say the audio and visuals are just simple, nothing flashy, and basic. You can't fault it too much because of the system it was on, but there's just not a lot here. Wave Race is a fun little game. It's a nice controlling watercraft game that feels good to play. It's simplistic in terms of graphics, but it makes up for it in just being fun. There are some elements that could be better, like maybe a stronger camera, stronger audio, and a bit more content, yet what is here is fun to pick up and play, and chip away at. It makes for a perfect game for the console. I think Wave Race is a fun pickup for any racing fan out there. It is my first original Game Boy review here on the channel, so there is no ranking yet, but I'm on a bit of a Game Boy kick, so hopefully that changes soon. Reception for Wave Race seemed to be pretty popular, getting solid reviews for the time. It also sold well, getting a Player's Choice release for the console, meaning it sold at least 1 million copies, putting it in the top 100 games sold for the console. Though I don't think the legacy for this game lies with this one, but with the later Wave Race 64, taking this idea and pushing it into 3D. I think that one and Blue Storm pushed the power of both of their respective consoles, where Wave Race doesn't really push the console. I hope to cover this whole franchise here on Camp Xtras at some point because I love those games. Unfortunately, this series has died off and we have not seen an entry from it in a long time. As for Packsoft Nika, they continued to work on Game Boy games like Donkey Kong and Mole Mania, and their last game would be Hamtaro Ham Games in 2002 for the Game Boy Advance, and after that they have not been active. I don't hear a lot about this entry anymore, and I do think it's a little forgotten, even if it's sold very well. On Backlogged, it holds a 2.4 out of 5 with over 100 plays, which is not great. It seems the biggest complaint in the reviews is just how simple it is. But if you've ever played this one or any other entry in this series, be sure to let me know in the comments below. But that does wrap it up for today. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm. Subscribe to keep up with more retro gaming content, but also check out my main channel, Camp Xbox, for retro Xbox content. But I'll see you here next time at Camp Xtras.